Hello. So this month we're going to talk about is some findings from research, specifically two studies that have really been instrumental in my perspective on how I approach reforming developmental math into gateway math, and studies that I find very useful when I'm working with schools, that I often refer to, because they were the ones that really, like, wow, they changed my mind significantly. So the first one we're going to talk about this time, and then we'll talk about its follow-up in the next video, is a study that was done in 2013, and the report came out in 2016. But what it was about was taking a group of students who all placed at the elementary algebra level, and it was a random control trial study. So these students were randomly placed into three groups. One was elementary algebra, one was elementary algebra with support, and one was elementary statistics, so a college level course with support. So that third option was basically the co-requisite. And there was all kinds of things to control for different kinds of bias in terms of how the teachers taught and graded and everything. It was a very well done study. It was an RCT. So in terms of the research, it was excellent. And what was amazing to me was when they looked at the results at the end, who did the best and who did the best by far. And it was the group that took the co-requisite statistics. Now, I'm someone who's taught statistics for 20 years. And when I first learned about this, at that point, I taught it like maybe 15 years. And I absolutely was a believer as faculty, as someone who's taught developmental forever and taught college level statistics forever. I could not fathom a student placing at the elementary algebra level being able to pass a college level statistics course. It just did not even seem possible. And like, how is that? I just couldn't fathom it. Okay. So when faculty say, I can't wrap my brain around that, I get it. I couldn't wrap my brain around it either. And yet, here's this data. And the students in the statistics group, so I will link to this study so you can see all the details of it, but they did markedly better than the other two groups. So, if you look forward, what does that mean for them? We'll talk more about that in the next video. Actually, what did that mean for them in terms of completion and credit accumulation and different things? But what I want to talk about in this video is just the results of that and what that means for us as faculty and what we have to consider. I did not imagine that a student who was placed at the developmental level could pass elementary stats, and I was wrong. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind as math faculty. We have a hard time putting aside our perceptions because we're going off of experience. But those experiences and those beliefs are based on a set of assumptions. The set of assumption that the student has to go through beginning algebra and intermediate algebra, and the set of assumptions that before they can take statistics, and the assumption that a student cannot take a statistics course unless they've passed intermediate algebra, the assumptions that the placement test, if it says you're at the elementary algebra level, that doesn't mean you're capable of completing statistics. We're going off of all of these assumptions, and they're not all true. And it wasn't just one study. There's been numerous studies, and there's been numerous schools who have had the same findings. And I will tell you, when did I really believe this? I definitely believed when I saw that data, but I'll tell you when I really believed it. When I saw a colleague of mine at a school where they were required to go to scale with co-requisites, and he and I have known each other for years. I very much respect him. We're both authors. We've talked about all these reforms. We have a similar perspective on just all the approaches to change. And he's like, Kathy, they can pass it. They can actually pass it. They're coming in at the beginning algebra level, and they can pass a co-requisite. And when he said that, I believed him. Now, that's shame on me because I should have just believed the data. But that's another thing we do as faculty. We don't believe the data when we don't like the results, but we tend to believe when we hear peers, when we hear someone who's been through it. And we don't tend to discount it as quickly with, oh, their students are different. Oh, their statistics course must be different. Something must be different. There's just no way that could be true. But guess what? It is true. And because of that, that was that whole experience, seeing that study and then talking to my colleague who saw this in living color at his own college, totally different college than the one that was in the study. That's what changed my perspective on co-requisites. I do not think they are a magic bullet. I do not think they are the gift that is going to solve all of our developmental math woes. I do think they're an incredibly powerful and useful tool, and we need to be using them more than we are. And I think that we need to be paying attention to what our perceptions are on placement, on co-requisites. All of this ties in together. What do we think a student is capable of doing based on different characteristics of them, be it a test score or a GPA or whatever. And I think what we have to just really sit with, as discomforting as it can be, is that sometimes we're wrong, that our perceptions, defying 20 years of experience, some of you have 30 or more years experience, what was true under a set of assumptions, and those assumptions, a lot of them, have changed. And so we have to evolve with them. So I just want to give you some perspective on this. I thought this study was absolutely fascinating. Again, I will link to it. But what I'm going to talk about in the next video is the follow-up to the study. What did they find with these students 3 years later? What actually happened with them? So come back for next time and we'll go look at that one.